Good afternoon, y'all. Thanks so much for being here today. I'm Tanya Samus, co-founder and owner of Samus Ochoa Public Relations and CNTRCTY. We created CNTRCTY to create a space and place for powerful conversations to become real action. So we're glad to see you today. We are very happy to be here to talk about biosciences, and Beto and I began speaking about this emerging industry series with Tech Bloc and CNTRCTY at the end of last year and has come to fruition beautifully. We talked about cybersecurity at our event last month, and I will hand it over to him to talk. Oh, it was so amazing. Each one of these I'm super happy to be at because it is intelligence and wisdom that I certainly have not had access to before now, and so I get to learn a lot of something every single time.
And we're doing it all across the city?
All across the city. So our first one was over at Port. We are happy today to be here at Greehey, and we're looking forward to continuing on with some advanced manufacturing and aerospace, but today, all about biosciences.
Absolutely.
And I'll let Beto talk more about that.
And what do you think should be a takeaway for our audience today from bioscience, healthcare? What are you thinking?
Well,
I
that's
know
why
I'm putting
here.
her in
That's
the
why I'm
spot.
here. So my hope is that we can learn from each one of our panelists what would be the most important thing for us to take into the city and create action for. What that is, I'll tell you in about an hour.
And look, I mean, I think, when we launched this program, we were brainstorming ideas back in December, November. So I would say about 3 years ago, I sat down with Greater ATX, and we started looking through the data, right? And the emerging industries in San Antonio. And 4 industries stood out: advanced manufacturing, aerospace, cybersecurity, and of course, bioscience. It gets me really excited because what we're seeing with the trends, it's more jobs, stimulating the economy, bringing more opportunity to San Antonio. But we also have many challenges in front of us. And we're gonna hear from a rock star panel of experts, academians, but also practitioners in the space. When I think about the future of San Antonio, about 15 years ago, I chose this city to start my company, a cybersecurity company. And I chose San Antonio because I'm from South Texas. And I fell in love with the culture, the identity of San Antonio, but its people too. And I was just talking to Heather and Adrian right now about a bunch of things, from cybersecurity to healthcare. But one thing stood up, right, is that we know what we're good at. And we need to lean towards what we're good at. And those 4 industries that I spoke about are 4 industries that are not just trending. They're gonna shape the future of our economy. And we should double down in that space. Us as residents of San Antonio, as professionals, because I see a lot of professionals in the room, we need to get educated on these industries. Our children potentially can achieve jobs in those industries. By 2050, you're looking at 8.5 million people between Austin and San Antonio, the mega region, right? The question is not whether we are gonna grow, it's how do we prepare for that growth? Investing in education, investing in infrastructure, investing in the workforce of San Antonio should always be a priority. Elected officials, industry, nonprofits, universities, academia, we all need to step up if we want to capture that momentum moving forward in the 21st century here in San Antonio. And I don't know about you all, but I'm excited about the future of San Antonio. What about you all? Yes? Yes? Exactly. And that's why we're here, right? We're taking time of our day to come and learn about bioscience and healthcare. Healthcare impacts our economy with $44 billion a year annually. And by the way, I don't have all the stats, but you're gonna hear some great stats from the panelists. And we have great panelists. Heather Hansen with Biomed SA. We have Jeremy Nelson with Velocity Texas. Jeremy, you're now the head of innovation, is that correct? We have Palomi Modi with Nucleate, and we have Amanda Ramirez, she's been a force of nature when it comes to building community here in San Antonio. And a good friend of mine, Adrian Mendoza with BioBridge. And before I introduce Amanda, I want to say a few words because she's the architect of this panel. Back in San Antonio Startup Week, she invited me to a panel conversation about the economy around healthcare. That's where we met, Heather. And it was a fascinating conversation. And we wanted to make sure that we took this conversation forward and bring it to the people, right? Not just the startup community, but let's bring it to the north side of San Antonio. Let's talk about it on social media. And she put together this panel conversation. And we're gonna learn about the opportunities and challenges, but also as you're hearing from the panelists, I want you to think about questions that you would like to ask the panelists. This is an intimate conversation, and we're doing this on purpose, right? We want less than 100 people attending our events so that you have that FaceTime with these professionals and experts on the subject matter, but that you can also ask those questions. And this is the magic of building community. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And Amanda, the floor is yours.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. Very excited to talk life sciences, particularly in San Antonio and throughout Texas. Just before I get started, I do want my students, my GSBS ambassadors, to raise their hands. So if you see someone that has a tag that says GSBS ambassadors, we have 3 in the crowd. I think there's a couple more behind the scenes. But those are students that actually work here at the UT Health San Antonio campus. They're actively doing research. They're actively looking at animal models or cell lines or proteins to help inform cures for cancer, to help us understand disease, and to help us find better ways to access healthcare. And so please talk to them about their research, because what they're doing is phenomenal. You can hear about it on Center City social media, on Tech Bloc social media, but give them an opportunity to share their science with you, because their science is going to change the world. What they're doing here is going to change the world, and we don't think about it. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, grew up, born and raised here, have lived all over, and I don't think, oh, miracles are happening like at San Antonio, like scientific breakthroughs are happening at San Antonio at UT Health campus, but they are, right? Our students have breakthroughs, and it's going to change things for a lot of, people around the world, and I want them to tell you specifically about their science because it's nuanced and detailed, and we'll have one of our students on the panel in a second. So, until then, let us get started. Let us start with Adrian Mendoza joining us. Adrian is the COO of BBG Advanced Therapies, a subsidiary of BioBridge Global. Oh, I'm like, we were assigned seats. And with over 25 years in biologics and regenerative medicine, she leads an operational system required to scale life-saving cell and gene therapies on a global enterprise level right here in our backyard, San Antonio, Texas. Thank you. I don't know, I just really want to sing that San Antonio song. San Antonio. So next we're going to have Palomi Modi come and join us. Palomi is one of my cancer biology researchers here at UT San Antonio. She does research right here in this building. There is a fish lab somewhere below us where she can tell you all about her science in a little bit. She actually did some social media content, so you'll see that on socials. But she's studying pediatric cancer research, which is an underfunded area in science generally across the world. And a lot of those innovations happen right here in the Greehey Cancer Research, or Children's Cancer Research Institute. Palomi is also the managing director of Nucleate Texas. She sits at the critical intersection of science and business, leading venture acceleration to help early-stage scientific founders turn their discoveries into viable local companies. Palomi, come join us. Now, just for those who don't know, Palomi is changing the game not only here in San Antonio when it comes to life sciences and the innovations that have spurred out of her founding Nucleate San Antonio just last year, but she's also bringing Nucleate Texas to a global level. So she's bringing the Nucleate Summit, which is a global convening of innovators throughout the world, to Dallas, Texas, so that people can see innovations are happening in Texas. She's also brought the spotlight here on San Antonio. So just extra applause for Palomi. Okay, then we have Dr. Jeremy Nelson, who is the Chief Innovation Officer at Velocity Texas, where he architects the strategies and infrastructure needed to establish San Antonio as a premier hub for military, medical, and bioscience commercialization. Thank you, Jeremy. Come on up. Now I'm turning into The Price is Right. And last but not least, Heather Hansen, who's the president of Biomedical, where she serves as the primary bridge between our local assets and global industry, coming straight from Taiwan's visit with Greater SATX and the mayor of San Antonio, advocating for the growth and retention of our $44 billion healthcare and bioscience sector. Thank you, Heather, for joining us. Okay, so before we get started, I want to start with a broader context. Texas Biomedical, Texas Healthcare and Bioscience Institute, which is our state-level advocacy organization, recently released a statewide report showing that Texas is rapidly emerging as a national leader in biosciences. Texas has received $4.6 billion in academic bioscience R&D expenditures, ranking third nationally. $1.8 billion in NIH funding in 2023, which is a 34% increase since 2019. $8.7 billion has been invested in venture capital, which has been raised between 2019 and 2023, ranking it fifth nationally. And there's been nearly 8,000 bioscience-related patents that are coming out of Texas alone. And that puts us ranked ninth nationally. So at every major indicator, when we think about research, funding, innovation, commercialization, Texas is on the rise. This is the place to be right now. This is a place people want to be. This is a place where companies can access both the East Coast and the West Coast easily and access venture opportunities. But when we look at Texas, that's not always evenly distributed. Here in San Antonio, we have $44 billion in healthcare and bioscience sector, and that's anchored by military medicine, UT Health San Antonio, now UT San Antonio, and Southwest Research Institute. We are exceptional at healthcare delivery, but there's an opportunity in front of us right now as an emerging industry. How do we translate this strength into a scaled life sciences economy? And how do we do that not just for our city, but for the region? As Beto said, for the South Texas region, for the Rio Grande Valley. How do we make sure we can scale that and build up South Texas? So with that, Heather, I'm gonna toss the first question to you. Let's see, I'm gonna trade, this one's Jeremy's. I'm not gonna, if we can grab our mics. So the THBI report highlights strong statewide growth, but not evenly across regions. While San Antonio is leading in healthcare delivery, our life sciences hasn't scaled at the same rate as our peers. Can you clarify the difference between healthcare and biosciences and what we're gonna need to take San Antonio to the next level?
Yeah, in San Antonio particularly, it's hard to separate healthcare and bioscience because there is a lot of overlap. San Antonio has over 1,800 active clinical trials going on at any given time. And these are primarily done by hospital organizations, including UT Health San Antonio. So there's a lot of crossover there. But in looking at the bioscience side, aside from clinical research in San Antonio, we are very rich in the research side. We have an incredible foundation of research between our three nonprofit organizations dedicated to research, plus the whole military health complex, which is the largest in the country. But we don't have as much of the companies. I think our biggest challenge right now is to get a big win of a large company. And once we get one of those, then we can start, building some momentum and moving forward. A lot of that comes down to the marketing. San Antonio traditionally has not done a great job at the institution level and organization level, as well as at the community level, of really talking about our healthcare and bioscience industry. So people aren't as aware of what's going on here to consider San Antonio, because we believe once they know of what's here, it's an obvious choice to come here, but we need to get them to know. So that is why Biomedical took on that challenge this year, and we have engaged with University of the Incarnate Word and their two programs they have there, MBA and MHA, to look at how other communities are advertising and marketing their bioscience sector and what strengths they have, how do they talk about them, what channels do they use, who's paying for this marketing, which is another big difference for San Antonio with some other areas. And so we can then present that to organizations that are here and say, okay, what are we going to do taking this information and moving forward? For most regions in the country, marketing and infrastructure buildup in the bioscience sector and other sectors too are done at the state level. So states give the funding to organizations to then advertise the state and market the state. Most of those states have one big city, maybe two, but generally one that's working in a particular industry, and so it's easier for them to do that and build that up. Texas having four large metros working in the bioscience space makes it a little bit more challenging, combined with the fact that Texas does not spend a lot of money in business development. So those are some things that we're working on.
Hello. Okay. And what do you see as our biggest strengths? What are you most excited about right now? That when we think about an emerging industry and that bioscience is, what excites you?
Well, what we really have to offer any company that's wanting to grow here or move here is our Accessible Research Foundation and our contract manufacturing. Most regions do not have either one super strong, let alone both. And why that is so important is whether you're a big company or a small company, you often, particularly in the biomedical space, as detailed and specific as it gets, you need access to equipment and researchers who know how to do research with that equipment. And we have all of that that's accessible. It's not buried in a university corner somewhere that no one can access, because it is possible and relatively easy in an academic sense to access UT San Antonio, but the other nonprofits we have as well. And in the contract manufacturing space, most regions have contract manufacturers that only want to work with large companies. And so they don't care about the small production runs that a large company may need for capacity if they're not going to give them more work, and plus the startups. And this is especially prevalent in the pharmaceutical and biologic space, because that is a lot more difficult for smaller companies to take on their own. They really need those contract manufacturers. So we have that here. So San Antonio is a perfect place to scale up a company and become the next KCI, now known as Solventum. I'll throw that out. Before they were acquired by 3M and others, KCI was started by a doctor here in San Antonio and grew to be the largest medical device headquarters in the state of Texas. And they've since been acquired and part of bigger companies, so they can't claim that anymore. But that was started by a startup here, so that potential exists. The environment exists. We just need to capitalize on it.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy. Jeremy, you've worked on the government side of things, and now you're working at Velocity Texas, working with startups. When you look at us as a system, where is there alignment, and where is there still fragments in the system that we can be doing more to support, whether small business or big business?
Yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for inviting me out for this. This is an awesome event. It's interesting not being in the government now, because when I was in the government, does it sound okay? Do I hold it like this, maybe? I don't know. Like this, yeah.
That's the way the cool kids do it.
So it's just... Yeah. So, when I was on the government side, you're giving out the money because you just want the work done, the capability built. But I always found myself like I was always a cheerleader for San Antonio. I would find myself on panels and I would need to take myself off because I was like, I'm just going to be biased to get it there, because I think we have a lot of great platforms currently that execute well, right? Here at UT San Antonio, I'm saying it, like the Strong Star Consortium, that is for us as a DoD, well, not anymore, formerly as a DoD, I'm gonna demilitarize myself slowly over this talk, but that was always this platform. When someone was like, I have a post-traumatic stress, I'm like, well, do you know about Strong Star? And the moment they said no, I'm like, you're not serious, because that is the gold standard, and that's here in San Antonio. Similarly, I think we have a lot of these platforms that serve as, and so I would look at Strong Star as like a validation of PTSD treatment. They are the ones that you go to for your RCTs, to the gold standard. We have those for technologies that you're going to put in like a pre-hospital setting. And so we have a lot of activities that coordinate all the different military installations that we have. There are activities where casualties are moved and technologies can be tested and shown to extend life, right? So we have a great group called STRAC, which is phenomenal at helping coordinate our military civilian trauma systems, and that is another platform. So I look at San Antonio as this amazing validation platform. We have many versions of platform, but I've always just been so impressed, and I think that like those pockets were extremely well known. I don't know if you know this, but like the whole blood resuscitation was known as the San Antonio Protocol taught to the world. They kind of dropped that, I don't know why, but that's what it was, because we were kind of the first to do that, and that was a military transition. We learned that, we built that up here. So I think we have a lot going for us, and I just look at anytime I see like we're not as high on a thing, I think, well, that's just opportunity for us, right? And we're underdogs, so I love that. So I'm grateful to be out of the DoD now, helping build this, because I've always thought it was a fantastic ecosystem. Did that answer your question? I don't think so.
A little bit, but I am curious, in your new position at Velocity, you're charged with bringing some people together. And so I was just hoping you can tell us a little bit about AIM and what your goals are with that conference. Yeah,
I can pitch AIM. You should all come to AIM. It is 19 May. It's a Tuesday. It's at the Convention Center. It's an all-day event. AIM is an acronym for Academia, Industry, Military. And so we have all of those sectors there at the event. And it is, the idea is we'll have your, I'm going to call them your vegetables, all that academic stuff that you want to see, you want to go to posters, stuff, we got that. If you want to talk to some of the military folks in this city, we got opportunities to do that too. And then we have this other session bucket that we're building, which is interactive. And the idea is I want you to go in there and be able to interface with each of those sectors and walk away with meaningful connections. And so I'm calling it like explicit concerted collisions, right? That's the point. So a good idea would be, again, I'm going to reference Strong Star because I love them. So, like the Strong Star group, they are the ones who validate all the PTSD. So let's imagine I'm going to have a military person there saying, we need far forward PTSD diagnostic for someone who's exposed to something. Can they return to the fight, or they need to go back? And then I'll have Strong Star there to say, academically, that's not validated. And then I'll have an industry partner there to say, I think maybe this solution will work. So those sorts of all three sectors coming together, having these roundtable discussions, that's what we're going to have at AIM. And also Palomi said she would eat really hot wings, like hot ones. And so I think that would be fun too if we do that stress testing. So I don't know if we're going to pull that off because logistically it sounds tricky, but we might.
Make it happen.
That'll be fun.
Marcus is in the room? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you for answering that. And that brings me to Palomi, who I have a lot of questions for, but she's going to give some hot takes at AIM, so to be continued there. Palomi, before I ask an official question, can you tell everyone a little bit about your science? Because you're a scientist and a convener of people. So first tell us about your science.
Thank you. I never get to talk about my day job. So I work right here at Greehey Children's Cancer Research Institute. I'm a fifth-year PhD student. I work in rare pediatric disorders, specifically muscle and bone cancer. What we do in lab is essentially we take therapies that are already approved through the FDA, and we try to combine them with innovation that's coming out of the institution and bettering the protocols that are available. It's very interesting working in rare pediatric disorders and being surrounded by wonderful startups who are trying to commercialize, because we have 500 patients for rhabdomyosarcoma a year, and there's absolutely no money in new therapies. So it's a very interesting sector that I focus on. But I think that anything that we learn and any protocol betterment or development that we have is going to be a year or two better survival, or it's better life for a patient whose age range could be between like 2 years old to like 14. So yeah, that's what I do in my day job.
Okay, that doesn't sound stressful at all.
Oh, no.
Or, yeah, just a little bit important. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Now, if anyone ever hears me outside of here, you will hear me speak my students' praises, and Palomi is one of them. And part of the reason I have entered this space with these wonderful folks is because I want to keep talent like Palomi here in town. We deserve it, our research deserves it, the community deserves it. And so, Palomi, I'm curious, what does it take to keep a life science PhD in San Antonio? What would help them choose San Antonio as a place to live and to work?
Can I give a one-word answer?
You can give a one-word answer.
Money.
Fair. Well, tell me more.
But the reality is that, when you are training as a PhD student or a grad student, right? Like you're spending most of your 20s training for one very specific thing. So like we see phenotypes that are either, people who want to stay within R&D or want to venture out, like myself. Like I've done pretty much everything outside of my lab that I possibly could be dabbling in through Nucleate, right? What takes, and it's kind of, maybe I'm not the right person to talk about this because I'm 30 days away from moving away from San Antonio, but what would have made me stay is that that role or that job that lets me capitalize on all the work that I have put in the 5 years that I've been here, right? So whether if it's me going through the patent bar examination, or whether, you know, running an accelerator, or managing a budget of close to $1 million or raising close to $800,000 for a nonprofit, right? Those are very tangible skills, and I'm talking about myself, but every single person within Nucleate has comparable skill sets. So I think having monetary compensation, or even just the right role, is so important. And not all of us can be absorbed in academia, right? We would love to stay, but there's only so many jobs, and there's only, the absorption rate is lower than you might want. So I think what would make me stay, or make anybody I know stay, would be jobs. Very easy to answer, because we gotta, you know, pay off those student loans somehow.
Now we are losing Palomi to Houston, sadly. And right now she works as the managing director of Nucleate Texas. So she oversees Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio, and the innovations that are happening with graduate students in all of those places. Palomi, I'm curious, in your manager, in your oversight director role, like, how do other ecosystems compare? And what would make a meaningful difference for at least you and the students you work with in trying to build a company or a future here?
Life science innovation is a very capital intensive endeavor, right? Especially like if you're looking at therapeutics, it takes a lot of time and a lot of money, and a lot of the opportunities that we see are just not like you can't expect a therapeutics company to have a revenue model. There's no revenue, right? There's only M&A, like, you know, so stuff like that. But how it compares to other ecosystem, like right now we have 22 companies across Texas. TMC in Houston has 16 portfolio companies through their venture program. Lyda Hill Philanthropies up in Dallas is providing everything that they can to move companies into biolabs at Pegasus Park, including grant writing services for CPRIT. Then we have $3.8 billion in Austin. I mean, throughout all ventures, Dallas has increased their labor force within life science to 44% from 2019, which is like second fastest growing in all of the US. There's so many stats that I could rattle off comparing sort of the ecosystems, but sort of the key tangible difference is, again, comes down to capital, right? So capital, it's very capital intensive to build technologies, to bring them to market. And it doesn't mean direct investment. It means everything else as well. Like what I was describing with like Lyda Hill Philanthropy is helping writing CPRIT services. That's 50, 60K of just in-kind services, or providing free lab space for emerging companies that are pre-seed. That's something that we need here. I mean, I'm going to point to Vincent right here. He's building his company, right? I'd love for him to stay, and everyone would love to see Powerhouse Therapeutics built here in San Antonio. But unfortunately, in all the way it's looking right now, we're all Dallas bound because of those resources and how easily and quickly accessible they are. So it's not to say there doesn't exist all of those things in San Antonio, and I see that because I've been integrated with that. We have like all ingredients to make a burger. We just like need to do more stuff like this that we can just assemble it and then present it, be like, hey, this is your opportunity and this is how we're gonna make it easier for you to do that. It's kind of my answer. I don't know if I answered that right, but yeah.
Thank you. I think that's perfect. And that leads us to Adrian. BioBridge Global has grown considerably over the last couple of years, and particularly with BBG, Advanced Therapeutics. So what does it take to scale? What does it take to go from discovery to manufacturing to global production?
It's a great question, and I think there's actually a lot of the echoed sentiments here across the panel, because let me kind of begin with how we started. We started as a blood bank, and a very innovative blood bank because our environment is vast, huge distances between different places, and that's what ultimately inspired the pre-hospital whole blood program with collaborators in the military medicine, regenerative medicine, wound care, handling injuries that are seen on the battlefield, ultimately created a field where we could play a part in helping advance regenerative medicine. And we became well known as not only an innovative blood center then, but also a tissue recovery organization, a cell recovery organization, a cell therapy manufacturing. We do characterization and authentication of different cell types very well. And so as a result of that, and those needs are needed not just in San Antonio. In fact, mostly right now, they're needed in other parts of the country. But there's not available expertise in other parts of the country. That groundwork that we've laid over 50 years, coming from the blood bank, developing a high throughput testing lab, developing innovative products for challenging situations and challenging regions, is what put us on the map. And I think inside San Antonio, we're not very widely known outside of circles and biotech. Most people know us as the blood bank, which is great. We need donors. But in terms of industry, we are seen by pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, as a very innovative organization because of our origins here in San Antonio. So that's how we've kind of grown, and what leads us to the work that I do, which is very exciting because the next generation of medicines come from blood. They come from immune cells that are then trained to fight cancer, to handle autoimmune disease. And these are already showing incredible results in clinics and in clinical trials, but they're also commercial therapies. But unfortunately, not many are available locally. And down in where Beto's from in the Rio Grande Valley, you would have to drive 7, 8, 10 hours to get access to a life-saving therapy, and quite often someone's very sick. So we've developed innovations in access too, and that leads us to the latest growth curve, which is that because our region doesn't have a lot of access and we're trying to solve that problem for those innovative therapies, again, pharmaceutical companies trying to get market access look to us to help solve that. So we solve problems. We bring experts together. We draw on our heritage as Military City USA and the incredible deep roots of research around us, including where we are, that has made us an incredible engine of progress in especially cell and gene therapy.
I don't know why I keep turning this off. I think I'm just afraid to breathe into it, to be honest. Okay, so we've talked a lot about different aspects of San Antonio, different aspects of biosciences. Before I open it up to the floor, I'm curious for each one of you if you can tell me what it would take for companies and talent to choose in San Antonio instead of relocating to larger hubs like Houston, instead of locating to Boston or San Francisco. Why choose San Antonio? What's it going to take? You did it too.
Yeah. We should start with Palomi as the one who has made this decision recently.
Well, my decision is a little bit personal. I'd like to live with my husband and not live on I-10. But no, I think, honestly, if today someone were to say, here's the right job, I'd stay. Cancel the U-Haul.
Who has money? Who has a job?
No, I'm being serious. I think there's so many of us that are... we do this not because we're in it for the money or the prestige or the fame. Famously, science doesn't get you any of those things. But I think we're in it because we're innately passionate about bringing our technologies, and we have this inexplicable drive to keep innovating and keep bringing it. Whether you're a CTO or innovator yourself, or you're in what I like to call it the support staff, right? Which I find myself to be. I think if any right role would make me stay. Any of the people within the nucleate community or just grad student community. I think not to say that there are not the right roles, but it's we don't have that integration of those early stage. I am freshly graduated, I went undergrad to grad school and don't have industry experience on paper, right? I think that's where the gap is. I would find it very hard if a lot of the talent pipeline that we cultivate here just goes and does great things outside of here. I would want a lot of them to stay. Not me, though, because I'd like to live with my husband.
Heather?
Yeah, every region has its challenge. There isn't a perfect region. You could look at Boston, which is the biggest bioscience capital, and it's really expensive to work there. So it's expensive for business, it's expensive to live there, and there's a lot of regulatory hurdles to getting 440 power drops and other things that are important. So every region has their issue. For us, it is capital is our issue. Okay, so what do we do to make us so much better in other areas the capital becomes less important? I think that's what we try to focus on in a lot of different areas. Biomed SA has BioFest Days coming up, which is one of and some of you may have flyers on that. The interest in establishing BioFest Days is twofold. One is it's marketing for our region. with a particular focus on other regions in the state, knowing what's going on here. But it's also a connection to information, resources. So if you are a startup and you don't know how to do something, you can go to a workshop on how to write an SBIR. There's a couple of them. If you are interested in being an investor in bioscience, maybe you invest in other things, you can go to 2 different sessions and learn how to invest in bioscience. So there's educational aspects, of course, our pitch competition, but it's getting that information out there to make it easier to do your business here in San Antonio in the biomedical space. So I think in a lot of areas, people are looking for how we overcome the challenges that we have and really pouring into places we can really excel at to make San Antonio the best place for a lot of companies to be.
Highly recommend BioFest Invest Days. I also recommend sleeping and drinking water because they are going to keep you busy. They keep me busy. Adrian?
You know, I have a perspective of someone who's moved to San Antonio. I lived in San Diego, arguably the biotech hub. If I really wanted to be like massively paid and successful in today's world of biotech, I would have stayed I should have stayed in San Diego at the time. However, I moved here after coming to an interview, and the people were very different than what I was accustomed to in my home base of San Diego. Not that they're not good people, but it's a bit of a different culture. And I found a sense of collaboration and the ecosystem here being small enough to work together that was very unique. And I realized that I could, as a professional, drive a greater impact in the field. And at the time, I was already armed with like some insight as to the systemic failures that affect the field of medicine and the delivery of these therapies. And so I think professionals that are mid-stage would find a great sense of achievement if they're in San Antonio, as opposed to if they're in Boston or San Diego or in other parts of the country. And I actually can't necessarily say that it's negative for a young professional. I know this might be counter to the discussion, but a young professional who's just getting started might find incredible experience, just as I did get the opportunity to get incredible experience in places where there's a larger ecosystem already established. But I hope that those individuals who get a taste of that world and those cultures and see the advantage of a town, a city, a region like ours, and a collaboration potential, not only decide to come back, but to stay here when they do. And I think that as that happens, more and more of the maturity of our biotech arena and technologies space can become an attractive place for people to stay just out of college as well.
Well, and I think a big benefit to what each of you are saying is the culture we have here in San Antonio, not only culturally rich in terms of our fiestas and our BioFest Invest Days, but also our biosciences. We all see each other regularly. We collaborate regularly. This is a space where you're not going to be isolated. I do hear that a lot from our Houston folks of they don't know what's going on in their ecosystem because it's too big to figure out. So that is a nice thing about San Antonio is that we are very well connected. With that, though, I want to open the floor. I have a lightning round later, but open the floor. What questions do y'all have about biosciences?
Oh, thank you. All right. Hey there. I know all our panelists, amazing group. Y'all represent nonprofits, and one of the things I think about in San Antonio is it would be so great if, like, the Toyota equivalent in bioscience would park down here, and then the spin-offs that go around it. We don't have that, and not likely. But nonprofits can do amazing things to seed what we have here. And what comes out of it in the end is probably better for us because we got to build it from the beginning. So I would say, like, this is a pitch for funding for all these great nonprofits. If somebody would come and, like, offer your nonprofit $5 million today, what would you do with it? And how would you help seed the environment here? And maybe we'll make that happen someday.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I'm Beth Eby. I'm one of the founders of the Health Cell with my co-founder here, Brigada Glick.
Should I go first? Okay. I'd start a venture studio. Simple as that. Like, I think most of our education, we're so lucky that we've made it so cost effective to do so. We have amazing mentors and experts from all over the world that donate their time. most of our expenses go towards connecting them to the right resources in the forms of like events and stuff. But what we're lacking is we don't have money to give, right? So if I had $5 million, I think, having 10 companies even get a little chunk of that could drive them for 2 more years, because we are, as startups, very, very cost effective in how we do our experiments, and we have amazing academic institution partners that help us make those cost effective choices. But yeah, Venture Studio.
I love this question, and I'm ready for you to write your check, Beth, whenever you want to hand it to me. Yeah, the resource challenges do affect what our nonprofits here can accomplish. What I would do is set up a system for biotech, pharma, and medical device that has the partnerships in place where if you have an idea, say coming out of the university, you can take it through every step of the process. Or maybe you already have done your drug discovery, but you're ready for formulation work. You could start anywhere in the process and be handed off to the next, to the next, to the next, with some funding mechanisms to help do that, and some grant writers, to really help companies get from whatever point they start at across the finish line. And that doesn't exist anywhere that I've found. Most incubators will do a piece of that. They tend to focus on the technology piece and some of the commercialization, but not the whole process through. So I would do that. I would also spend money to market our ecosystem on the national and global scale. And part of that would be really developing, having somebody dedicated to developing the relationships with strategics, not only to get them to move here, but also to bring them in as mentors, to bring them in as potential acquisition purchasers, so that it's just drawing more attention, but also having a functional return on those relationships.
Okay, I'm going to steal it. I love this question. I would love $5 million. For my graduate students in particular, I'd love to buy their time because right now their time is spent in the lab conducting research that the NIH pays for, and I would love to buy out their time so that they can go into industry for the summer. They can go work somewhere else for the summer and come back and use those skills so that they can start up companies using what they've learned from Johnson & Johnson, what they've learned from Genentech, what they've learned from Eli Lilly, and then they can start companies from there. So I would like to buy out student time and also faculty time, because we have a bunch of wonderful faculty researchers, but they don't have time to create companies. And they need that time, that space, and to see the value, and for that I have to buy out their time.
Okay. I'm interested, so I think if you can piggyback off of mine if you want, because I think I'm going to pitch it to you. But I would build unique capabilities that make us the obvious place to go, and so I think of at Velocity, this is what I think I'm charged with doing. I don't know, Brian's here, he can tell me if I'm right. I don't know. Chief Innovation Officer is such an interesting title, because people are like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, you can't use that to get out of filing paperwork at work, because they're like, I'm being innovative, that's why I didn't do it right. They don't like that, so it doesn't work there. But I think unique capabilities would be, so I had talked about, we have these validation platforms that already exist, but what other things can we build? So, how can we help founders that are trying to innovate in the medical device space prove that it does whatever it is, and bring users to it? So I think of usability testing kind of labs, that sort of stuff. There's lots, but I do find that we have this history with blood and blood products over and over. We like stopping blood and then producing it in some sense. So that's where I'm interested, because as we're building unique capabilities, what can we build in the blood space? Yeah. Right. So in my office, I have all these patents from things that were developed here in San Antonio, and most of them are stopping bleeding. Yeah. But then, as one of our partners in our little campus area, you guys love blood. So what can we do?
We're kind of vampire-like. Yes, we love blood, and it's always funny to say. So I think you touched on something very, very important, and that is innovation, and that attracts money. And this actually is our story. Not that we're massively rich at BioBridge Global. We still have financial woes and challenges, and every nonprofit does. because we're not a taxable entity, but we just have to generate enough revenue to invest and reinvest. I think nonprofits have a role in solving problems. And that's really what I mentioned earlier, is we have worked in blood products, in transfusion products, in cell therapies, tissue-based products as an innovator for the field. What has happened as a result of that is that we've developed platforms, and one of the most recent ones is the Mobile Leukapheresis Center, which is effectively, it's very simple. It's a blood mobile. You've all seen a blood mobile, I'm sure. But it is designed specifically for the collection of these cells, which are collected in a blood donation that takes 4 or 5 hours. So you have to have a bathroom on board, you have to have an analytical lab to manage getting the cell counts and making sure you're collecting the right kinds. This is something the industry has deeply needed, because every time you activate a new site where cell therapies are going to be delivered, you need to be able to collect the cells from the patient for their precision medicine. So unfortunately, in South Texas and in the 70,000 square mile area we serve, there's only one hospital delivering these cell therapies today, and there are several that have the capability of collecting the cells, but that's the barrier to entry for a big pharmaceutical company, money, getting access to our region's patients through the delivery of their drug product, which is a cell therapy product. So by solving that problem of access, because we have challenges in access, we have challenges activating new sites for pharmaceutical companies to reach, we are able to be a contractor for the big pharmaceutical companies. So that is how, I think you're touched on something really important, which is that whatever niche there is in biotech, and it may be blood products for us, blood cell products for us, but there's other niches. Find the problems, if you're a nonprofit, that are affecting the entire industry. Look to the collaborators, because people will step forward because you are a nonprofit and try to help, because you're unbiased. You're trying to do the work that helps every organization succeed. Once you establish a platform, an innovation that is undeniably needed, people will come to you and help support and uplift your financial position.
Hello, my name is Michael. I'm a publicist with our public relations. San Antonio has a reputation for being a blue-collar town, and I think everybody here in attendance would agree that this is definitely a sector and an industry that we would all like to promote and grow. However, I believe that most industries kind of grow in tandem with 2 or 3 industries. So what of those local industries are you guys collaborating with to help uplift the bioscience sector?
I can speak to that. There's a lot of crossover with cyber, AI, and the medical space for a lot of different reasons. The challenges in hospitals, for example, when it comes to cybersecurity are very different than all the other industries. If you think of, a surgery going on and the doctor needs to access the patient record, you don't want them having to enter password, for example, in that system. What's my password? Patient's dying on the table. So the challenges are very different, and they're very real. And so you bring in AI to that, you have to have a lot of controls to make sure that you're getting the right information and not hallucinogens. I can't say that word today. I do have jet lag, to your point earlier. I just got back from Taiwan. So the crossovers there are very important. There have been some interactions along those lines. Also, I would say space manufacturing is another one. The more we talk about humans going into space, which is a national interest again, we need medical care for those people. San Antonio has a lot of depth in designing instruments for space, as well as some medical device for space and biotech for space. So there's a lot of crossover, I think, with just about everything in biomedical, and there are different organizations that are working together in different ways to accomplish that. There's also workforce that plays into that as well, and how we leverage our military as they're coming out and becoming veterans rather than active duty. There's a lot of opportunity that we have to move in all sorts of different directions in San Antonio.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rafael Jimenez, Colombian-born, San Antonio raised. I am a master's of electrical engineering at Texas A&M. Specifically, my research area is in biomedical imaging and signal processing. So my question for the panel is this. I understand that we're going to be talking a lot about capital investment, investing in the PR, the way that we present ourselves on a global scale. But the inquiry that I had was, are there specific roles, talents, pipelines that we need to be recruiting more of here in San Antonio to support the growth and capital investment we're aiming for? Do we need more engineer pipelines here? Do we need more scientists? Anything of that sort we could talk about? Thank you.
You should answer this.
Yeah, I was going to. So yes, absolutely. So what San Antonio is doing right now with the help of Biomedical is implementing the Texas Regional Industry Industry Biomedical.
It's TRIBEC. We'll just go with that.
It's TRIBEC, and it's out of Texas A&M actually through their Center for Advanced Manufacturing. It's $1 trillion facility out in A&M, but we're one of the many sites that are implementing it in our community. So we have Alamo colleges, school districts on board. We have universities that are working to integrate the TRIBEC certification at a local level. So we are working with community colleges across Texas to implement this. I think there's over 14 community colleges to implement the TRIBEC program, which our hope is that it will be similar to BioWorks, which is in North Carolina, which is the industry standard for biomanufacturing in particular. So we are trying to create that industry standard at a Texas level, get Texas state as a state to support it so that we can bring more companies to Texas. And in particular, San Antonio, we've been working with Alamo Colleges, NEISD, UT San Antonio, and other schools to do that. Now, in addition to that, I would say Biomed Career Fest is something to keep an eye out for. That's this Friday. We have graduate students and postdocs coming from across Texas into San Antonio every year to attend this event. There's no other event like it, at least in Texas right now, and more states are trying to get on board. But graduate students in particular are hard to retain or hard to recruit, and this is a specific event for them. So it is an industry seller. Industry does like hearing about this event. In addition to all of those things that companies are considering when they're thinking about workforce, they're thinking about business degrees, they're thinking about engineering degrees, and they're thinking about science degrees. And they're starting from community college associates level to even college level and graduate degrees. Now, oftentimes for biomanufacturing, sorry, I can get really into this. Oftentimes for biomanufacturing in particular, which is the companies, we're trying to bring here, there is this low-skilled workforce, as you talked about, which is wonderful, though, because we're training them earlier. So Alamo Biosciences, which is just across the street, is integrating the TRIBEC curriculum into middle school summer camps and high school summer camps. So when I talked to a company recently from a different country, they were like, wait, you're implementing this at high school and middle schoolers? And I'm like, well, I'm not. Someone else is, but San Antonio is. Right? San Antonio wants our workforce learning that earlier so that once they actually get the jobs in biomanufacturing, they want to come back to school to level up, to get that next degree. And once we bring biomanufacturing, we're going to get those more high-skilled jobs as well.
Can I add? So sorry.
Oh, okay, I'll go. I would add to that that it's very important to understand that you don't have to have an advanced degree to work in the healthcare and bioscience sector. People tend to think of that as, I have to go to college and get fancy degrees. And you actually don't. And Biomedical has on our website a careers page where you can download a PDF in Spanish or English to look at all the career options that are available right out of high school with 6 weeks of training. That's what's, to me, so special about this sector in particular is it's available for everyone. So the more we get out to the general population of, this is for you, this is for you, this is for everyone, can work in this industry. And there are a lot of jobs that they're really having a hard time to fill that don't require any advanced degrees at all, not even associate's degree, just right out of high school. The biomanufacturing being one of them, although a little bit of training added to that. That people in San Antonio need to think of our city as a city of science. And everyone can be involved in that at different levels. Even the people who clean the labs. You may think, okay, that's just a janitor. No, it's a janitor who understands how to clean a lab, which is different than a janitor cleans a restaurant. It is a more elevated training, or more elevated experience. The quality of the benefits is the highest that there is of any other sector. The salaries are higher. This is definitely a sector that people should really be looking to, and we hope to get the word out for that.
Can I?
Just want to add.
You talk too much.
I agree completely with Heather, and that I just wanted to add that it adds to social and economic mobility, which is what we want here in San Antonio. Go for it.
No, sorry. I'm just messing with Amanda because this is something that we're both so. Dr. Ramirez, I'm going to make you call me Dr. Modi, okay? But no, we're both so passionate about this from like the student like community side of it as well, right? Like when I talk about Nucleate and these 22 startups that come through, like Heather mentioned, it's not. You don't have to have a PhD. We're open to everybody, and like Nucleate is such an interesting experience because we have virtually no rules. We're not restricted by an academic setting. There's no 6-8 month commitment. Like it is literally Disneyland for professional development. You come in, you can ride Space Mountain 5 times if you wanted to, or you could just sit on this like sidewalk and watch people with Mickey Mouse ears. Like that's up to you. What we can do and what we do have, which is very, very unique that most nonprofits that are student-led or student organizations don't have is resources, access, and funding, right? So like I wouldn't be up on this panel talking about like whatever I'm talking about if I didn't have access to that sort of opportunity to like, hey, I am capable of like overseeing 22 startups across Texas. I didn't grow up, like wasn't born with that knowledge, right? So we learn everything from what does it mean to have a patent? What is an IP? I had to Google that when I joined Nucleate. So if you are high school or even like master's students, it's not specifically for biology degree students. Like come talk to us. You don't have to join our leadership. You can just come to our events and meet other people. Like we were at an AI event in Houston recently, and we met like a couple interns who were all like, like freshmen in school, and they were just there checking people in. I started checking people in at Health Cell events a couple of years ago, right? And that sort of like exposure means so much for somebody at that specific stage in their career, because how else are you going to figure out what you want to do and where you want to be? If you want to live in San Antonio, what kind of job would you like? If you wanted to do electrical engineering, would you want to be a part of a startup? What do you have access to those startups or those CEOs who need those electrical engineers? And I think Nucleate can provide that for you.
So I think that there is potentially a gap in our biotech arena here in terms of bringing in additional skill sets in commercialization of new drugs, biologic drugs. I think that we're very adept here in San Antonio in the early stage research, the development, the understanding of the mechanism of action, but commercialization and looking into payer dynamics and where to place drugs. These are the things that sometimes are experientially gained when you work for like a larger pharmaceutical company or late stage pharma. But they are gaps from what I've seen in biotechs here in San Antonio. They don't have that experience. They're not quite sure how to orient their program so that they can be successful at a commercial scale. So I would say that that's maybe a gap to answer your question. Mm-hmm.
I think we have time for one more question. Yeah, all right, Benny.
Hello, everybody. To piggyback on Heather, I actually attended BioFest last year, and I will be there again this year. And what that has done for my business and the development, events like this, to be totally honest, guys, they really work, but you have to take advantage of them. I'm the type of person, I've already researched everyone on this panel. When I knew this was gonna happen, I'm that person. I will show up on your LinkedIn page and read and see who you are, but that's what it's for. So when I learned of Heather, I learned of Biomed, I took advantage of it, and everyone that was on those panels, I actually went up, talked to them, introduced myself, actually gave them an executive introduction folder to my company, and that particular week opened up so much for me. Not just here in San Antonio. I've attended panels and been in rooms that I never thought I would be in, and I'm gonna be honest with you, because of that. I'm talking about even overseas. I've actually been invited to other countries so far to talk about and see what I'm working on here in San Antonio. And I think doing that all it's doing is bringing more attention back to San Antonio and inviting people to San Antonio and let them know that what we do have to offer. It just takes a little time. You say you have students here, and really that's where a lot of it is with the youth. I'm learning so much. I'm 52 years old, but I feel like I can learn so much from the younger generation, and that's where San Antonio is going. We have to pay attention to them and have to put them in situations like this so they can be the ones to make that change and make a difference. So I'm completely happy with this panel and all the other ones that are coming up. So I think that's one thing that San Antonio is doing in a positive manner.
What he said.
Thank you, Benny. That was a great endorsement, Heather. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't know that I can top what he said because that's an external endorsement. But, it is true in general that you have to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. And if you don't, particularly in a growing ecosystem, you're going to have a harder time. There's a lot of resources out here, and it takes the initiative to go after them. So I'm glad you had a lot of success.
I mentioned this in the beginning about an action item, right? So if we don't have $5 million to Venmo you today, as the general public, what can we be doing to help raise the image of biosciences, and what can we do to support what you all are doing as common human?
I love this question. We talk about this all the time in various venues. So if you do a little bit of research, you can go to Biomedical's website and read about what's going on in this ecosystem, the overall, or see me speak in a lot of places, and I'll go through the 10 or so bullet points that make us unique. Talking about this ecosystem when you're out and about, or when you're at a conference somewhere and you're talking to the random people and they say, oh, what's San Antonio like? Say something good about this ecosystem. Knowing that it's healthcare and bioscience is our largest economic sector, a lot of people are like, oh, I thought it was just, tourism and, the blue collar comment or whatever. It's setting that elevated standing of this is what San Antonio is. We have a lot to be proud about here. We should not just talk about the Spurs, as awesome as they are. We have a lot more than that. The Spurs drive a lot in our economy, but we have some jobs that are available for everybody that are really high-tech and amazing jobs, and we need to talk ourselves up. So I would encourage all of you to find out some new facts, whether it's about healthcare and bioscience or cyber or whatever industry piques your interest. I'm assuming bioscience, since that's why you're here. Find out about what's here and then talk about it when you're out and about or when you're at another networking event somewhere. Ask somebody, hey, did you know that BioBridge Global has this van that goes out and does precision medicine? Those kind of things are very interesting. They're amazing, and they're awesome resources that we have here.
I kind of want to add on to that a little bit. We have so many opportunities that we've kind of individually are doing it. Someone told me very early on in my career that interesting people are interested, and I live by that. I think that representing San Antonio, if I have to answer that question one more time, it's like, what's in San Antonio other than the Riverwalk? But I think, shamelessly plugging in Nucleate here, as Dr. Ramirez mentioned, that we are doing our global summit in Texas, but I want to add what it took for us to get it here. It's never come off the coasts before, Boston Bay Area. They rotate every year back and forth. The task was raise $500,000 before Thanksgiving, and it was August. And nobody in any other region in the U.S. can say, we can do that as a nonprofit for a 4-day conference, right? Now, we're doing this because we support 300 graduate students from 24 countries all over the world to be accommodated and come and stay and look at what Texas is about. What I would like to have happen is the next time this conversation comes and say, where do we do the summit, which I know Dr. Nelson and I talked about it a little bit. I'm doing better. There we go. When we were doing this, and his question was why not San Antonio? And the next time this conversation about the summit comes around, I want there to be so much enthusiasm and passion about San Antonio that it's not even a question that it's coming to San Antonio.
Yeah. I'll add to that. There's a lot to celebrate here, and I think we all need to be an advocate for. I'll just highlight one story from this week that just blows my mind, that it happened here in San Antonio, considering the odds against it. There are 2 gene therapies available for sickle cell disease, and the high prevalence states are not Texas. That's Alabama, Mississippi, Washington, D.C. But there is a population here that requires a lot of intensive treatment and needs a lot of blood products, alloimmunizations all the time to support their condition and avoid sickle cell crisis. But the gene therapy is hard to get. It requires procedures like we could perform on the mobile leukapheresis center. But just this week, Methodist Hospital performed a sickle cell disease gene therapy for a patient. And only 20 patients so far in 3 years in the entire nation have been treated for sickle cell disease with that particular drug. To have it here in San Antonio, when we don't have a high prevalence population, and it's something we should celebrate and announce to the world, because to accomplish that, it is a complex care regime to do. And to have that here, I know it probably took a lot of collaboration from all different groups in healthcare, and I think it's something we should take credit for as a community, that something like that would happen, because it is spotlighting the things that can occur in healthcare, which is ultimately the aim for biotech, right? It is to help people achieve the delivery of the medicine in a way that ultimately helps to save their life. And we're doing that. We're seeing the saving life happen here too. So I think we really need to celebrate that. So stories like that, if you find them, shout them from the rooftops, highlight that it happened here, and it only happens because it's collaboration.
I get one. Okay. The call to action. I love this part. Just a story real quick. I love San Antonio, but I don't know a lot about. There's a lot of moving parts, so I got to learn. So back in the early days when AI, ChatGPT, I used it to make a fake group name called SabTech, which some of you are part of that. So, and then I would knock on doors like Texas Biomed and say, I have this official group that SabTech, I forget what it stands for, but it sounds official. And then I would get these tours, and I got to see the facilities. And then I was like, I want to go see KBR, which is the old Brooks City base. And we brought up space medicine. I don't know if you guys know, but like San Antonio was the place where all of that human physiology was discussed. Like John F. Kennedy stood and looked in a window, and they still have his little footprints and say, this was the John F. Kennedy window, as he was saying, like people were in the chamber, doing the altitude stuff. So I think we have this.
If I could add to that, that was the last place he went before he went to Dallas and was assassinated.
Well, I wasn't going to bring that up, but yeah.
It's famous. Like, it's a big deal. He came here for a reason.
It is, but I guess my point was like I wanted to learn about that stuff, and then I just knock on people's doors, the group grew, and it was a great way because now we can all talk to like, oh, what do you want about San Antonio? I know about this thing. I think it's really hard to talk about stuff you don't know about, right? So to me, I love jumping on tours. I don't know, my district council member would always do a tour. I would jump on that anytime I can learn about stuff in our ecosystem, because then I can be a better advocate for it. So that's what I would argue. We all should be doing that kind of stuff.
We do have an industry tour as part of BioFest Days, and we have a military health tour as part of BioFest Days. So there you go.
Okay, I'm going to close us out with our last one. If you have events coming up that are not related to biosciences, that are just networking events or getting to know you events, send them our way. My students here in the crowd would love to attend and be, hey, one of the bioscience kids that are in the crowd. I mean, Vincent Palomi and I were recently at a boxing event, and what were y'all called? Like the bio group or the bio crew at the anyways, there was a boxing event.
I think it was just nucleate kids.
Yeah, it was just the nucleate kids, right? But they were able to talk their science at a boxing event where people didn't know anything about what they were doing.
I was just there for the red carpet, but science was great.
But it was an opportunity for them to highlight what they're doing, and that science is a thing, and that our scientists are going out there, and they're real people doing real work that's important. And if you see them at an event, ask them about their science, and ask them to explain it as if you were a second grader. They need to be good at that to be good at their job. So it's good for them, and it's good for you in the fact that now you know a lot more about science. So please feel free to send the invites to me and I'll share it with them. But thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Bethel, for organizing this in Center City. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Big round of applause, please. So again, thank you to the panelists, and thank you all for joining us today. I learned a lot today, right? I learned that we need more resources, workforce, training. I learned about how passionate they are about the future of San Antonio, and that we fall in love with this idea that we can shape the future of our city. And I think those are all ideas that we want you all to share with others. So we have more events coming up. We have the Advanced Manufacturing event May 20th, and this San Antonio Technology Center. And again, this is Tanya Samis with CNTRCTY. My name is Beto Altamirano with Tech Bloc, and I'm so thankful for you all and your support. And we have San Antonio Tech Day coming up April 20th and 21st. And on the 20th, we have Tech Fuel. We're giving away $100,000. So yes, it's nothing. It's very little, right? I actually think you applied. Is that correct? Or no? Did you apply to the Tech Fuel?
Not me, but Vincent, how far would that get you? 100,000.
But see, it's a good start, right?
Vincent's like 6 months.
I know, or less, right? Or less.
But that's why therapeutics is intensive, but there's a lot of companies.
And it's the same with cybersecurity, it's the same with advanced manufacturing. We need more funding, right? And I know a lot of you here in this room are working towards those goals, right? So let's keep the conversation moving forward. Let's not give up, right? Let's try harder, right? But let's build community along the way. So again, thank you so much.
I'll just say thanks to my team, Bianca, Avery, Sophia, and Marlene. Thank y'all for what you do. Thank y'all for coming out. We'll see you at the next one.